The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was a place of quiet beauty and perfect order. It was a massive circular room. In the center was a soft, glowing light that pulsed slowly like a gentle heartbeat. Around this light, in wide rings, were the seats for the delegates. There were hundreds of them, from species all across the galaxy. Some delegates were tall and thin, with long necks and quiet voices. Others were short and wide, with tough, rocky skin. Some floated in the air, their bodies made of shifting colors. Some had many eyes or many arms. They were all different, but they all shared one thing: a love for peace, rules, and calm discussion. The leader of the council was Speaker Valeria. She was a tall being who looked a little like a graceful bird. She had large, intelligent eyes and soft feathers that covered her head and back. Her voice was calm and musical. She never raised it. She was listening to a debate about mining rights on a small moon. It was not a very exciting topic, but it was important. This was how the galaxy worked. It worked on talk, not on fights. High above the main floor was a visitor's gallery. Here, important guests could watch the council work. In one of these seats sat a man named Kim Chul. He was the human ambassador. He had been waiting for many months for a chance to speak to the full council. He wanted to ask for full membership for humanity. Right now, humans were only a client species. This meant they were new and were not allowed to make big decisions. They had to follow the rules of the older, wiser species. Kim Chul had a speech prepared. He had practiced it for weeks. He was going to talk about human curiosity, our desire for knowledge, and our hope for peace. He wanted to make a good impression. He wanted the council to see humans as calm, rational, and ready to join their peaceful community. He watched the delegates below. He felt a small flicker of worry. They were so orderly, so clean, so quiet. Humans could be loud. They could be emotional. He pushed the thought away. He would show them our best side. Down on the main floor, the debate was ending. Speaker Valeria was about to call for a vote. The room was silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the translation devices. Then a terrible noise ripped through the quiet. It was a sharp electronic screech. It was the sound of a Priority 1 emergency channel being forced open. Every delegate flinched. Some of the more delicate ones covered their hearing organs. The peaceful light in the center of the room flickered and turned a warning red. The giant viewport at the front of the chamber, which usually showed a map of the galaxy, went dark. Then a new image appeared. It was a ship, but it was a terrible sight. The ship was scarred with long black marks from laser fire. Whole sections of its metal hull were bent and torn open, showing the twisted innards of the vessel. One of its engine pods was completely gone. Sparks flew from a broken piece of the hull. This was a ship that had been through hell. The ship's identification code flashed below the image. UNS Dauntless. Species human. A wave of shock and confusion moved through the council. Humans, the new ones? What were they doing here? And in such a state? This was a major breach of protocol. You did not just force your way into a council session. You certainly did not do it in a broken warship. In the visitors' gallery, Kim Chul felt his blood run cold. His heart hammered in his chest. This was a disaster. All his careful work, all his months of waiting were being ruined. Who was this? This was not part of the plan. The view on the screen changed. It switched to the bridge of the damaged ship. The view was shaky. Warning lights flashed red and yellow. The air looked smoky. And in the middle of the chaos stood a man. He wore the uniform of a human ship captain, but it was torn and dirty. His face was smudged with grease and sweat. He looked exhausted. His eyes had dark circles under them, but his jaw was set and his shoulders were straight. He stood firmly despite the obvious damage to his ship, and he was covered in blood. It was not a little blood. It was splattered across his chest and arms. It was a dark, ugly color, but it had a strange, faint green glow to it. It was clearly not human blood. The man spoke. His voice was rough, like he had been shouting for a long time. It was filled with a tiredness that went down to his bones. Galactic Council, he said, the translation software making his words clear to everyone. This is Captain Lee Jun of the United Nations ship Dauntless. We request immediate docking and an emergency session. The chamber was utterly silent. No one knew what to do. This had never happened before. Commander Krog, the delegate from the Torgran Empire, was the first to find his voice. The Torgrans were a large, powerful species with thick, armored skin. They valued strength above all else. Krog let out a low rumbling sound of disgust. "Look at this," he growled, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "The primitives have arrived, and they are covered in their own filth. They come here begging for help after some childish fight." On the screen, Captain Lee Jun heard the comment. His tired eyes seemed to grow harder. He looked directly into the camera as if he could see right into the council chamber. "This is not our blood," he said, his voice flat and cold. He gestured to the green stains on his uniform. "We have encountered a hostile, non-council entity, a new species. They attacked without warning. They did not try to talk. They only tried to kill. This is what is left of them." He paused, letting his words sink in. The silence in the council chamber became deeper, heavier. The delegates looked at the blood on his coat with new understanding, and then with a growing fear. A new species? A hostile one? This was the stuff of nightmares for the Galactic Council. Their whole society was built on peaceful first contact. The idea of a species that attacked on sight was terrifying. Lee Jun continued. "We have data. We have records of the battle. We believe this is a threat to the entire galaxy. That is why we are here. We are not begging. We are warning you." In the gallery, Kim Chul put his head in his hands. A threat to the entire galaxy? This was even worse. Now humanity was not just causing a scene. They were bringing a war to the Council's doorstep. His dream of a peaceful membership was shattered, but as he looked at the blood-covered captain on the screen, a small, cold thought entered his mind. The man did not look like a liar. He looked like a survivor. Speaker Valeria finally spoke. Her musical voice was still calm, but there was a new tension in it. "Captain Lee Jun of the Dauntless," she said. "The Council hears you. Your request for docking is granted. You will be brought to a quarantine bay. You and your senior officer will be escorted to this chamber to give your testimony." She looked at the green blood on his uniform, her large bird-like eyes unblinking. "Tell us everything." The silence in the Galactic Council chamber did not last. After the shock of the human's appearance and his words, a low murmur began to grow. It was the sound of 100 different species expressing fear, anger, and disbelief. The image of the bloody captain and his broken ship still hung in the air. Speaker Valeria raised a slender hand. The murmuring slowly died down. Her feathers were slightly ruffled, a sign of deep stress. "We will suspend our current agenda," she announced. Her voice was still calm, but it was now the calm of a deep frozen lake. "We will hear the testimony of the human vessel. Security, prepare the quarantine docking bay. Ambassador Kim Chul, you will join us on the main floor." In the gallery, Kim Chul felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He stood up, his legs feeling weak. He walked down the long, curved ramp to the main chamber. The eyes of the alien delegates felt heavy on him. He was used to being ignored. Now he was the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. He took his place at the small, simple podium reserved for client species. It was much smaller than the podiums of the full members. He looked up at the giant screen. The view was now from a camera inside the Dauntless. He could see Captain Lee Jun and another person, a woman with a tired but sharp face preparing to leave the bridge. Her uniform was also stained with spots of the glowing green blood. On the other side of the chamber, Commander Krog of the Torgrin Empire watched with folded arms. His large rocky face was unreadable. He had called them primitives covered in filth, but his eyes were now fixed on the screen with a new intense interest. The wait felt very long. Finally, a set of large doors at the back of the chamber slid open with a quiet hiss. 2 figures walked in, escorted by 4 council security guards. The guards were tall and wore sleek armor. The 2 humans looked small and messy next to them. It was Captain Lee Jun and the woman from the bridge. They had not changed their clothes. They had not cleaned up. The green blood was still there, dark and dried on the fabric. It made them look wild and dangerous compared to the clean, orderly delegates. The smell of smoke and something sharp and acidic came from them. Lee Jun walked with a steady pace, but Kim Chul could see the deep exhaustion in his movements. The woman walked beside him, her eyes scanning the room, taking in every detail. She held a small data chip in her hand. Speaker Valeria spoke. "Captain Lee Jun, you have forced this audience. You may now explain yourself. Identify your companion," Lee Jun nodded. "This is Dr. Park Mina. She is our Chief Science and Medical Officer. She has analyzed the data from our encounter." Dr. Park Mina gave a short, respectful bow of her head. She did not smile. Kim Chul could not stay silent any longer. He had to try to control the situation. Speaker Valeria honored delegates, he began, his voice too loud in the quiet room. I must apologize for this. Dramatic entrance. I am sure Captain Lee can explain his actions. Humanity is a peaceful species. We seek only— Lee Jun cut him off. His voice was quiet but firm. With respect, Ambassador, this is not about apologies or peace. This is about survival. Kim Chul stared at him, his face turning red. He was the ambassador. This soldier had no right to speak to him that way in front of the entire council. Tell us about this encounter, Captain, Speaker Valeria said, steering the conversation back. Lee Jun took a slow breath. The UNS Dauntless is a science vessel. Our mission was to survey the higher-end system. It is a red dwarf system on the fringe of council space. It was listed as uninhabited. We were there to study an unusual gas giant. He paused as if remembering something painful. We were there for 3 standard days. On the 4th day, our long-range sensors detected an energy signature. It was not natural. It was a ship, emerging from a dust cloud on the edge of the system. It was not a design we recognized. It was not in any council database. Dr. Park Mina stepped forward. She slid the data chip into a slot on the human podium. The main viewport lit up again. This time it showed a video from the Dauntless's bridge. The view was calm. Stars were visible. Then a shape moved into view. A collective gasp went through the chamber. The ship was monstrous. It was not built with straight lines or clean curves. It looked like it had been grown, not constructed. It was a twisted mass of dark, organic-looking material and sharp metallic spikes. It had no clear front or back. Parts of it pulsed with a sickly green light, the same color as the blood on the humans' coats. It was easily 10 times the size of the Dauntless. That is the hostile vessel, Dr. Park said. Her voice was clinical, like a teacher giving a lesson. We attempted all standard first contact protocols. We sent greetings in every known council language. We sent mathematical sequences. We sent signals of peace. There was no response. On the screen, the alien ship suddenly glowed with a bright green energy. A moment later, a bolt of that same energy shot towards the Dauntless. The video shook violently. Alarms blared. Their attack bypassed our primary shields, Lee Jun said. It was some kind of phased energy weapon. Our science vessel had only light defensive guns. They were useless. Our first hit took out our main communications array and one of our engine pods. We were trapped. Commander Krog leaned forward, his elbows on his large podium. What did you do? He asked, his voice a low rumble. What anyone would do, Lee Jun replied, his eyes dark. We tried to run. We pushed our remaining engines to the limit. But the ship was faster. It herded us. It was like it was playing with us. Then it moved in close. It extended a boarding tube. It attached to our hull. He looked down at the blood on his uniform. They came aboard. We saw them for the first time. They were tall, thin. Their bodies were a mix of dark chitin like an insect and glowing green parts. They had too many limbs. They moved very fast. They did not speak, they just started cutting. The video on the screen changed. It was a shaky, chaotic video from a security camera inside the Dauntless. It showed a hallway. The lights were flickering. A human crew member was firing a laser tool at a creature. The creature was terrifying. It had long, sharp arms that ended in blades. It ignored the laser fire. It moved forward and cut the crew member down with a single, swift motion. A splash of glowing green blood hit the wall as the creature was hit, but it did not seem to feel it. Dr. Park's voice was grim. Their blood is a corrosive acid. It burns the skin. Their only goal was to kill every living thing on our ship. They did not try to take prisoners. They did not try to communicate. They are not a species that seeks to talk. They only seek to destroy. Lee Jun looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of the delegates. We are a science vessel. We are not soldiers. But we are humans. We fought back. We used what we had. Wrenches, cutting torches, emergency suits for armor. We fought them in the hallways. We lost many good people. He pointed to the blood on his coat. This is from the one that made it to the bridge. I killed it with my own hands. We sealed the breach and broke away from their ship. But the big one was still out there. It was moving in for the final attack. Our weapons were gone. Our shields were failing. We had one chance, he paused. The entire council was leaning in, listening to every word, so, Lee Jun said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. We got creative. The council chamber was so quiet you could hear the soft hum of the life support systems. Every delegate was staring at Captain Li Jun. The story he had told was terrifying. A monster ship, creatures that killed without reason. And now this human was saying they had gotten creative. What did that mean? Li Jun looked at Dr. Park Mina. She gave a small nod and took a step forward. She began to speak in her clear, calm voice. Our primary weapons were offline. Our shields were at 8%. A second direct hit would destroy us. The enemy ship was moving closer. It seemed to know we were helpless. We had to use what we had left. We had to use the ship itself. On the main viewport, a schematic of the Dauntless appeared. It was a simple design. A long central hull with 2 engine pods. One of the pods was shown in red, broken, and dead. We still had our navigation thrusters, Dr. Park explained. These are small engines we use to turn or make tiny movements. They burn supercooled plasma. It is very cold, not hot. We turned all of them towards the enemy ship. We opened the valves all the way. We sprayed the plasma onto a small section of their hull. The schematic changed to show a simulation. A cloud of blue-white gas hit the dark organic hull of the enemy ship. The area where it hit turned a brittle, frosty white. Their ship is a mix of biological and metal parts, she continued. The sudden extreme cold made the materials contract at different speeds. It caused the hull to become weak and full of tiny cracks. It was like pouring hot water on a frozen window. It did not break through, but it made the area fragile. A low murmur went through the council. Using navigation thrusters as a weapon? It was unheard of. It was like fighting a lion with a spoon. Commander Krog was watching, his head tilted. He looked thoughtful. That was step 1, Li Jun said, taking over. It was a distraction. We needed a bigger weapon. Our warp core was damaged in the first attack. It was becoming unstable. A standard procedure is to eject it into space before it explodes. We decided not to eject it. Ambassador Kim Chul felt a cold dread. You kept a failing warp core on board? That is madness. It was our only option, Li Jun said, his voice flat. We calculated a short emergency warp jump. We aimed not to travel, but to jump right next to the enemy ship. The plan was to get very close, then eject the core and let its instability do the work. The viewport now showed a simulation of the 2 ships. The small, wounded Dauntless glowed with a shaky energy field. It vanished and then reappeared a mere kilometer from the massive alien ship. It was an incredibly dangerous and reckless maneuver. The jump stressed the core to its breaking point, Li Jun said. As soon as we dropped out of warp, we ejected it. The core flew towards the enemy ship. It was a ball of unstable energy. It exploded before it even hit them. The simulation showed the warp core erupting. It was not a simple explosion. It was a tear in space itself, a flash of violent light, and then a temporary small black hole formed for a fraction of a second. It sucked in everything around it before vanishing. The gravitational shear from the micro-singularity pulled on the weakened part of their hull, Dr. Park explained. The section we had frozen with the plasma. It could not handle the stress. It ripped open like paper. The simulation showed a large piece of the alien ship's hull being torn away. Glowing green gas and debris were sucked out into space. The massive ship began to list to one side. But it was not destroyed, Dr. Park said. It was crippled, but its weapons were still active. It started to power up its main cannon again. We had no warp core. We had almost no engine power. We could not get away from the blast. Li Jun's face was grim. That was when we used their own strategy against them. Dr. Park had an idea. She noticed a pattern in their energy signals. When the boarding party was on our ship, the big ship's movements were less coordinated. It was like the individuals on our ship were connected to the main ship's mind. A hive mind, Dr. Park nodded. We still had our secondary communication system. It was damaged, but it worked. I reprogrammed it. I did not send a message. I sent noise. A very specific, powerful burst of random data across every frequency. It was the mental equivalent of screaming into their ears while flashing a bright light in their eyes. On the viewport, the energy readings from the alien ship went wild. The patterns became chaotic and confused. The ship, which had been turning to aim its cannon, suddenly stopped. It drifted, its movements becoming clumsy and uncoordinated. The hive mind was disrupted, Dr. Park said. Just for a few seconds. But it was enough. It was our only chance, Li Jun said. We used our last bit of engine power. We flew straight towards them. We aimed for the tear in their hull. We flew right into the opening, the chamber gasped. It was a suicide move. We were not trying to ram them, Li Jun explained. Our ship was small enough to fit inside the hole. We flew into the guts of their ship, and then we set off every single one of our remaining emergency thrusters and our backup power cells. We caused a chain reaction inside their own vessel. The simulation showed the small Dauntless disappearing into the wound of the giant ship. Then a series of explosions started from the inside, first small, then a large one that split the alien ship in two. The green light of its core flickered and died. The two broken halves of the monster ship drifted apart, dead. The Dauntless was heavily damaged by the internal explosions, Lee Jun finished, but our main hull was intact. We drifted away from the debris. We spent the next 5 days making slow emergency repairs, just so we could make the journey here. We came as fast as we could. He looked around the silent chamber. We called them the Vora. It is from an old Earth word for a creature that consumes everything. We believe they are a galactic disease, and if one of their ships was in a system on your border, then there are more, many more. The story was over. The humans had not won with superior weapons or shields. They had won with cold, with gravity, with noise, and with a desperate, reckless courage. They had used their ship as a tool, then as a bomb, and then as a boarding party of one. They had turned their own destruction into a weapon. The delegates looked at the two humans covered in the blood of their enemy. They no longer looked messy or primitive. They looked dangerous. They looked like survivors. And in a dangerous galaxy, a survivor was the most valuable thing of all. The story was finished. The image of the broken Vora ship hung in the air. The council chamber remained utterly silent. The delegates were trying to understand what they had just heard. It was not a simple victory. It was a desperate, brutal act of survival. The humans had not fought a battle. They had committed an act of controlled suicide and somehow lived. Speaker Valeria was the first to speak. Her voice was softer than before. "You have given us much to consider, Captain. Dr. Park, the data you have brought is deeply troubling." Ambassador Kim Chul saw his chance. The mood in the room had shifted. The humans were no longer just causing trouble. They were bearers of a terrible warning. He stepped forward, trying to sound calm and official. "Honored Speaker, esteemed delegates," he began. "As you can see, humanity stands ready to assist the Council in this matter. We can provide all our data. Our scientists will work with yours. We are a peaceful people, but we are also resourceful. We can be a valuable partner." He was trying to turn this disaster into a diplomatic opportunity. He wanted to show that humans were team players. Commander Krog of the Torgran Empire let out a loud, sharp laugh. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Everyone turned to look at him. "Partner?" Krog said, his voice full of amusement. "You talk like a merchant, Ambassador. You're trying to sell something." He pointed a thick, stony finger at Lee Jun and Park Mina. "Look at them. They are not partners. They are not peaceful people. They are warriors." Kim Chul's face turned red. "Commander, I must protest. Humanity values peace above all." "Your words say peace," Krog interrupted. "But their actions scream war." He turned his large body to face the rest of the council. "My people understand strength. We respect it. The Torgran Empire has the largest fleet in the council. Our ships have the strongest shields and the biggest guns. We are the shield of the galaxy." He paused, looking at the blood on Lee Jun's coat. "But what would one of our heavy cruisers do against this Vora?" "It would stand and fight. It would fire its powerful cannons. And when its weapons did nothing, it would be destroyed. Its strength would be useless." He gestured to the humans. This science ship had no strength. It had no power. But it had something better. It had a sharp mind. It had teeth. They looked at a monster and did not see a problem they could not solve. They saw a puzzle, and they broke it. Krog's words changed the room. The other delegates began to nod. They saw his point. The galaxy was full of strong, powerful species who followed rules. They built powerful shields and powerful guns. But the Vora did not care about rules. They were a force of nature. You could not reason with a hurricane. You could only survive it. A new delegate spoke. It was a being from the Xylos race. They looked like small floating plants. Their voice was a gentle rustle. "Commander Krog speaks the truth. Our strategy for a threat of this level is quarantine. We would declare the higher-end system, and all surrounding systems forbidden. We would post warning beacons and never go there again. We would hide from this threat." The Xylos delegate floated slightly higher. But these humans did not hide. They could not. They were trapped, and they found a way to win. They did not use a bigger gun. They used a different tool. This is a way of thinking we have lost. Another delegate, a insectoid species called the Kiran, clicked in agreement. Our analysis of their tactics confirms this. The probability of their success was 0.002%. It was impossible. Yet they are standing here. They represent a variable that our logical models cannot account for. The variable of relentless illogical will. Kim Chul listened, his heart sinking. They were not praising human diplomacy. They were praising human violence. They were fascinated by the blood on their clothes. Li Jun had been silent through all this. He finally spoke. His voice was still tired. We did what we had to do to save our crew. It was not a tactic. It was our only choice. We are not warriors. We are survivors. Exactly, boomed Commander Krog. That is what makes you dangerous. A warrior fights for glory or for duty. A survivor fights to live. There is no stronger motivation. There is no limit to what a survivor will do. Speaker Valeria listened to all of this. Her feathered crest was smooth again. She had regained her composure. She saw the path forward. The council was not designed for war. It was designed for peace. But the universe was not always peaceful. Sometimes a dangerous tool was needed. Captain Li Jun, she said, your actions, while a breach of protocol, have revealed a critical gap in our collective security. We have strategies for diplomacy. We have strategies for defense. We have no strategy for an enemy that cannot be reasoned with and cannot be stopped by our conventional defenses. She looked at Kim Chul, then back at Li Jun. The council must discuss this in a private session. The implications are too great. You will all wait in the antechamber. We will call for you when we have reached a decision. The security guard stepped forward. Li Jun and Dr. Park Mina turned and walked out of the chamber. Kim Chul followed them, his mind racing. He did not know what to think anymore. In the small plain antechamber, Kim Chul faced the captain. You have no idea what you have done, he said, his voice tight with stress. You have made us look like savages. Like brutes. Li Jun looked at him. There was no anger in his eyes, only a deep sadness. Ambassador, they were going to kill us. All of us. Should I have let them? So we would look more civilized in a report? They are not promoting us because they like us, Dr. Park said quietly. They are afraid. They are afraid of the Vora, and now they are also a little afraid of us. We are a weapon they never knew they had. Kim Chul stared at her. He understood then. This was not about membership. This was about survival. The galaxy had just become a much darker place, and humanity covered in blood had just stepped out of the light and into the shadows. They were no longer the new children. They were the ones who had seen the monster in the dark and lived to tell the tale, and the galaxy was deciding if it wanted to pat them on the head or hand them a sharper knife. The antechamber was quiet. The soft hum of the station was the only sound. Captain Li Jun sat on a simple bench, his head in his hands. Dr. Park Mina stood by the door, her arms crossed. She was looking at nothing, her mind far away, probably going over the data from the battle. Ambassador Kim Chul paced back and forth. The floor was smooth and clean. His steps made no sound, but his face was a storm of worry and anger. This is a disaster, he muttered, more to himself than to them. All my work, years of building trust, gone in a single day. Li Jun did not look up. They were going to kill us, Ambassador. Don't you understand? Kim Chul stopped pacing and faced the captain. It doesn't matter. Perception is everything in politics. We needed to show them we are calm. We are rational. We are like them now. Now they see us as animals, covered in blood, talking about tearing ships apart from the inside. Dr. Park spoke without turning her head. They see us as survivors. There is a difference. Not to them, Kim Chul insisted. They live in a world of rules and clean decisions. We have brought them chaos. They will punish us for it. They will reject our membership application. They might even restrict our travel. We will be locked away because you two couldn't follow procedure. Li Jun finally lifted his head. His eyes were red with tiredness. What procedure, Ambassador? The procedure for being eaten? The rule book for when a monster is tearing your crew apart? I must have missed that chapter. Before Kim Chul could reply, the door slid open. A council guard stood there. The council has reached a decision. You are to return to the chamber. Kim Chul straightened his jacket. He took a deep breath, trying to find his diplomatic face again. Li Jun and Dr. Park stood up. They did not try to clean themselves. They walked back into the grand chamber exactly as they had left it. The blood was still on their clothes. The feeling in the room was completely different. Before there had been shock and confusion. Now there was a tense, heavy silence. It was the silence of a big decision being made. All the delegates were in their places. Their faces were serious. Speaker Valeria stood at the center. Her large, bird-like eyes watched the three humans as they walked to their podium. Commander Krog was watching them too. His rocky face was unreadable, but he was leaning forward, interested. Kim Chul bowed. "Honored Speaker, we are ready to hear the Council's decision." Speaker Valeria nodded. She did not smile. This was not a happy occasion. Ambassador Kim, Captain Lee, Dr. Park. The Galactic Council has reviewed the data from the UNS Dauntless. We have confirmed the existence of the hostile species you have identified as the Vora. Our analysts agree. This is a Class 10 existential threat, the first we have ever encountered. She paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. Class 10 meant complete destruction. It was the highest level of danger. Our standard protocols for such a threat are clear, she continued. Evacuation and total quarantine of a vast region of space. It is a strategy of avoidance, of hiding. It is a strategy born of fear. She looked directly at Lee Jun. You have shown us another path, a difficult and terrible path, but a path nonetheless. You did not hide. You could not. And you fought. You fought with a creativity and a determination that this council has never seen. Kim Chul felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe they understood. Maybe they saw the value in human courage. Then Speaker Valeria spoke the words that changed everything. The council has voted. Humanity's application for full membership is granted, effective immediately. Kim Chul's breath caught in his throat. He almost smiled. He had done it. Well, they had done it. He wanted to cheer. This was what he wanted. But Speaker Valeria was not finished. Her gaze was fixed on Lee Jun. However, she said, and the word echoed in the huge room. Full membership brings with it full responsibility. The galaxy now faces a threat for which it is unprepared. Our fleets are designed for battles of power, not for fights of desperation. Our minds are trained for logic, not for the kind of creative destruction you have demonstrated. She took a slow step forward. Therefore, the Council is creating a new branch of service. The First Contact Defense Command. Its purpose will not be diplomacy. Its purpose will be to protect the galaxy from threats like the Vora, threats that cannot be reasoned with. Kim Chul's hope turned to ice. He saw where this was going. Speaker Valeria's voice became formal. Captain Lee Jun of the UNS Dauntless, your actions, though outside of protocol, have demonstrated the precise skills this new command requires, an unwavering will to survive, the ability to turn any tool into a weapon, the courage to make impossible choices. She paused. The Council hereby offers you the rank of Fleet Commander. You will be the first leader of the First Contact Defense Command. You will be given resources to build a new fleet. A human fleet. You will recruit from your people. You will develop new tactics. Your mission will be to find the Vora, to study them, and to stop them. The chamber was completely silent. The promotion was unbelievable. A human, just granted membership, was being given a command position over a new military branch. Lee Jun stood perfectly still. He did not look happy. He looked like he had been handed a heavy burden. Ambassador Kim Chul was in shock. This was not what he wanted. He wanted a seat on the Science Council. He wanted trade agreements. He wanted humanity to be known for art and philosophy. Now their first job in the galaxy was to be its soldiers, its killers. Commander Krog was the first to make a sound. He slammed a large fist on his podium. But he was not angry. It was a sound of approval. The Torgren Empire supports this decision. His voice boomed. We will provide ship designs, materials. We will stand with the humans. Finally, the council shows teeth. Lee Jun looked at the blood on his own hands. He had come here to warn them. He had ended up being put in charge of the war. He thought of his dead crew. He thought of the faces of the ones he had lost. This was their legacy. Not a peaceful welcome, but a declaration of war with him at the front. He looked at Speaker Valeria. He knew he could not say no. The galaxy needed a shield, and against this enemy a shield was not enough. They needed a spear. They needed a claw. He bowed his head. I understand, he said, his voice low. I accept. In that moment, the future of humanity and the galaxy was set. They had arrived covered in the blood of their enemy, and for that they had been promoted. They were no longer the new members. They were the guardians of the gate. The silence in the council chamber did not break. It simply changed. Before, it was the silence of shock. Now it was the silence of a new reality settling in. The humans were members, and their captain was now a fleet commander. Ambassador Kim Chul felt dizzy. He tried to find the right words. A thank you, a promise of cooperation. But the words would not come. He could only think that his career, his vision for humanity was over. They would not be known as poets or explorers. They would be known as soldiers. Captain Lee Jun looked at Speaker Valeria. He did not look like a man who had just received a great honor. He looked like a man who had been given a heavy weight to carry. His shoulders seemed to sag for a moment before he straightened them. Speaker Valeria, he said, his voice firm. I accept this duty. But I have conditions. A murmur went through the council. Conditions? One did not give conditions to the Galactic Council. Commander Krog grinned. It was a fearsome sight. He negotiates. Good. A leader must know what he needs. Lee Jun ignored the reaction. First, Dr. Park Mina will be my chief science advisor. She understands the Vora better than anyone. She will have full authority over all research and analysis. Dr. Park looked at him surprised. Then she gave a single, sharp nod. She was ready. Granted, said Speaker Valeria without hesitation. Second, Lee Jun continued, the First Contact Defense Command will not be a typical military. We will not use typical warships. We need a new kind of vessel. Fast, adaptable, built for survival, not for show. I want the best engineers from every species. But the core of the command, the captains and the crews, will be human. This caused a louder murmur. He was asking for a human-led military force inside the council. It was unprecedented. Why? Asked the Xylos delegate, its leaves rustling with concern. Would a mixed crew not be more in the spirit of the council? Lee Jun turned to the floating plant. Because you think like the council. You think with rules and logic. The Vora do not. My people have just learned how to think like the enemy. We have the instinct now. It is a terrible instinct, but we have it. I need crews who are not afraid to break the rules to survive. Commander Krog slammed his fist again. He is right. My people are brave, but we fight with honor. There is no honor in fighting the Vora. There is only living or dying. Let the humans do this dirty work. They are already stained with it. His words were harsh, but they were true. The other delegates saw the logic. They were afraid of the Vora. They were also now a little afraid of the humans. Let the dangerous ones handle the dangerous thing. Your second condition is also granted, Speaker Valeria said. We will provide the resources. You will provide the mindset. Lee Jun took a deep breath. My third condition. We do not hide this. The people of the galaxy must know what is out there. They must know about the Vora. Fear is a powerful tool. It will make them vigilant. It will make them support us. Secrecy will only make us weak. This was the most shocking condition of all. The council operated on control and careful information. The idea of telling everyone about a galaxy-eating monster was terrifying. That will cause panic. Kim Chul finally found his voice, horrified. Good, Lee Jun said, his voice cold. A little panic is better than complete surprise. My crew was surprised. Most of them are dead. Let the galaxy be afraid. Let them be ready. Speaker Valeria was silent for a long time. She looked at the faces of the other delegates. She saw their fear. But she also saw their acceptance. They were handing this problem to the bloody human and his new command. They wanted it to be his problem, not theirs. We agree, she said finally. The truth will be shared. The First Contact Defense Command will have full authority to act as it sees fit to neutralize the Vora threat. It was done. The decision was made. The meeting was over. The delegates began to leave their podiums, their conversations a hushed and urgent buzz. Lee Jun turned to leave the chamber. Kim Chul grabbed his arm. What have you done? The ambassador whispered, his face pale. You have made us the galaxy's attack dogs. We will be feared, not respected. Lee Jun looked down at the man's hand on his arm until Kim Chul let go. Ambassador, Lee Jun said, his voice tired but firm. You wanted a seat at the table. You have one. But you were wrong about what they value. They don't value our peace. They have enough peace. They value our violence because it is a violence they do not have. We are not their attack dogs. We are their new teeth. He looked at the green blood on his sleeve. They promoted me because of this. They saw this and they knew we were the only ones who could do what needs to be done. You can either help me or you can get out of my way. He didn't wait for an answer. He walked out of the chamber, Dr. Park at his side. They left Kim Chul standing alone in the vast, beautiful room. The ambassador looked around at the clean, orderly space. He realized that humanity's place was no longer in a room like this. Their place was out in the dark, in the damaged ships, in the blood-stained hallways. They had been given a promotion. But it felt like a sentence. They were the ones who would have to get their hands dirty so the rest of the galaxy could stay clean. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Galactic Council made the announcement, just as Li Jun had demanded. They told everyone about the Vora. They showed the data from the Dauntless. They showed the terrifying ship and the blade-limbed creatures. There was panic, just as Ambassador Kim Chul had feared. But there was also something else. A grim understanding. The peaceful galaxy suddenly felt very fragile, and at the center of it all was the name of the new fleet commander, Li Jun, the human who had survived. Li Jun did not have time for the news reports. He stood in a massive shipyard orbiting the Council's central world. It was a place of incredible noise and light. Giant ships were being built. Some were Torgrand battleships thick with armor and guns. Others were sleek Kirin scouts. But in a separate dock, a new kind of ship was taking shape. It was based on the design of the Dauntless, but it was different. It was leaner. It had more engines. Its hull was covered not in decorative panels, but in extra sensor arrays and reinforced points for attaching tools. It looked less like a ship and more like a weapon. Dr. Park Mina was there, looking at a screen covered in designs. "The first of the new fleet," she said to Li Jun, "the Dauntless Spirit. The crews are arriving, all human. They are volunteers." They all saw the broadcast. Li Jun looked at the faces of the new crew members walking up the ramp. They were young. They looked determined. They also looked a little scared. They were not joining a normal navy. They were joining the shield and the spear of the galaxy. A familiar figure walked towards them. It was Ambassador Kim Chul. He looked older. His fine clothes were replaced by a simple, practical uniform. He stopped in front of Li Jun. "I have been reassigned," Kim Chul said. His voice was flat. "The Council believes my skills are best used here. I am to be your liaison. I will handle the politics. I will get you the supplies you need." Li Jun looked at him. He could see the shame and the disappointment in the man's eyes. Kim Chul's dream of a peaceful humanity was dead. "You think this is a punishment, Ambassador?" Li Jun said. "It is not. This is the most important job any human has ever had. You wanted to build a future for our people. This is how we build it. Not with quiet words, but with strong actions. We are making sure there is a future for anyone to have." Kim Chul was silent for a long moment. He looked at the new ship. He looked at the young, brave faces of the crew. He took a deep breath. Some of the tension left his shoulders. "Then let us get to work, Fleet Commander," he said. His voice was still quiet, but it was firm. 2 weeks later, the new fleet was ready. It was not a large fleet. 10 ships. But they were 10 of the most advanced and adaptable ships in the galaxy. They were not built to fight fair. They were built to win. Li Jun stood on the bridge of the Dauntless Spirit. It felt familiar, but everything was new and sharp. Dr. Park was at the science station. Kim Chul was at a communications console, already talking to a Torgran supply master. A message came through. It was from Speaker Valeria. Her face appeared on the main screen. "Fleet Commander Li," she said. "A long-range Kirin scout has detected an energy signature. It matches the Vora. It is in a system on the edge of explored space. The system has 2 pre-industrial civilizations. They cannot be evacuated." Li Jun nodded. This was it. The first test. "We have the coordinates. We are leaving now." "The entire council wishes you success," Speaker Valeria said. There was a pause. "And Fleet Commander?" "Thank you." The screen went dark. Li Jun turned to his crew. Their faces were tense. They had all trained for this, but now it was real. "Set course," Li Jun said. "Maximum speed. This is what we were made for." The fleet jumped into warp. The stars outside the viewport turned into long lines of light. The journey was quiet. No one spoke much. Everyone was preparing themselves. They arrived at the edge of the system. The Vora ship was there. It was just like the one from the Dauntless. A twisted, organic monster of a ship. It was moving towards the green and blue world where the innocent civilizations lived. The Vora ship detected them. It turned away from the planet. It saw the new ships. It recognized the design. It moved to attack. All ships, battle stations. Li Jun's voice was calm. Remember the plan. We do not fight their fight. We make them fight ours. The battle began. The Vora ship fired its green energy weapons. The human ships did not try to block them with shields. They moved. They dodged. They were faster and more agile than any council ship. Group 2, use the thruster tactic on their port side, Li Jun ordered. Group 3, get ready with the comms disruption. 2 of the human ships flew close to the Vora ship. They sprayed the supercooled plasma from their navigation thrusters. A section of the alien hull turned white and brittle. Another ship sent out the powerful data burst, the noise that confused the hive mind. The Vora ship shuddered, its movements becoming clumsy. It was working. They were hurting it. They were confusing it, but the Vora ship was learning. It adapted. It fired a wide spray of energy that was harder to dodge. One of the human ships, the Courage, was hit. Its engine exploded. It began to drift, dead in space. Li Jun saw it happen. His face was hard. Group 1 with me. We draw its fire. Dr. Park, is the warp core ready? Ready, Commander, she said. The Dauntless Spirit and 2 other ships flew straight at the Vora ship. They fired their small lasers not to damage it, but to make it angry. The Vora ship turned its main weapon towards them. Now, Li Jun yelled. The Dauntless Spirit and its 2 companions made a micro-warp jump. They appeared right next to the Vora ship. At the same time, a small unmanned drone shot out from the Dauntless Spirit. It was a warp core set to overload. The core exploded. The small temporary black hole pulled at the weakened part of the Vora hull. The frozen section ripped apart with a terrible tearing sound. The Vora ship cracked open. The green light inside it flickered and died. It was over. The bridge of the Dauntless Spirit was quiet. Then a cheer went up. They had won. They had protected the planet. They had killed the monster. Li Jun did not cheer. He looked at the wreckage of the Vora ship. He looked at the drifting remains of the Courage. He had lost people again. This was the cost. He opened a channel to the whole fleet. This is Fleet Commander Li. The threat is neutralized. Well done, but this is only the first. There will be more. We have shown the galaxy that we can do this. We have shown ourselves. Let's go home. As the fleet turned for home, Li Jun stood on the bridge. He was still covered in the old dried blood from the first battle. He had not cleaned the uniform. He saw it not as a stain, but as a reminder of why they were here. A reminder of the price. The galaxy had promoted them because they were covered in blood. They would stay promoted for the same reason. They were the ones who were not afraid to get dirty. They were the ones who would walk into the dark so others could live in the light. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay.